quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their presence? Don't think so. 119 members present. The House is now in session. The clerk will read the journal from the previous day.
Annapolis, Maryland, March the 27th, 2021.
Memorials and other papers. Yea and nay consent calendar number 14. House bills passed in the Senate. The clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 65.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the reading of House Bill 65 be considered the reading for all the bills on the calendar.
So ordered. Yeas and nays, number 15. House bills passed in the Senate. The clerk will read the bills.
House Bill 34, House Bill 94, House Bill 108, House Bill 161, House Bill 278.
Message from the Senate. House Bill 581. The clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 581, Labor and Employment Standards During an Emergency, Maryland Essential Workers Protection Act.
Clerk will read the message from the Senate.
Ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates, the Senate recedes from...
Clerk will read the message from the Senate.
Ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates, the Senate recedes from its position on House Bill 581. Said bill is returned herewith.
Messages. Senate Bill 883. The clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 883, Tobacco Tax, Out-of-State Sales of Premium Cigars and Pipe Tobacco.
Clerk will read the message from the Senate.
Ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates, the Senate refuses to concur in the House amendments and respectfully requests the House recede from its position. Should the House prefer a conference committee to confer the disagreeing votes of the two houses, the Senate appoints Senator McCray, Chair, Senator Elfreth, and Senator Sally. Said bill is returned herewith.
The clerk will read the message to the Senate.
Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, the House of Delegates does not recede in the House amendments to the Senate bill and agrees to a conference committee to confer on the disagreeing votes of the two houses. The Senate has appointed Senator McCray, Chair, Senator Elfreth, and Senator Sally. The House appoints Delegate Lukey, Chair, Delegate D. Barnes, and Delegate Buckle. Said bill is returned herewith.
It's in 3 turns. Concurrence calendar number 34. The clerk will read the bill and the Senate amendments.
House Bill 206, Election Law, Early Voting Centers, Hours of Operation, Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So much to be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
The amendment conforms the bill to the Senate version. Move to concur with the Senate amendments.
Question for the House is to concur in the Senate amendments. All in favor
Madam
signify
Speaker.
by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing gentlelady from Carroll.
Thanks. Can you just explain what we concurred with?
Sure, absolutely. What it does is that it changes the time for early voting to 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., which is what the Senate bill, how the Senate bill passed.
And what did we pass?
We passed 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., so this adds that extra
Hour
hour.
sooner.
Right, and what that does is because it makes it the same as our election day hours so that it's all consistent.
Thank you.
Thank you, no problem.
Okay. Question for the House to concur in the Senate amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 206 is on third reading and final passage. The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker. You're welcome.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 110 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 206, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 714, Special Education Learning Continuity Plan Requirement, Amendment Number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much we consider the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
The Senate amendment removes a requirement that an individualized education program team consider risks associated with education during emergency conditions and fixes a technical error, puts this bill in the same posture as SB 300. Move to concur.
Question for the House is to concur in the Senate amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 714 is on third reading and final passage.
Madam Speaker?
Recognizing the gentlelady from Howard.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Could the floor leader just explain this bill for me, what the amendments did?
Committee chair.
I actually think that the delegate, the subcommittee chair that's in the annex is trying to come over to answer your questions. Over in the annex, yeah.
Vice.
Not the vice chair, the early childhood subcommittee chair.
Yes, I'm here.
Recognizing the subcommittee chair in the annex.
Thank you. What are your questions?
I wanted to understand the bill a little better, and I also believe there was some opposition from some of the early childhood organizations, and I wondered if you could address that.
I'm not sure what opposition there was, but the bill creates a need for a learning continuity plan for special education students in a similar situation to the one that we had with COVID, where instruction is occurring inside of schools, or not inside of schools, but outside of schools, and we're continuing with instruction.
And this applies to private and well, I don't know if there are any public schools, but it applies to all early childhood schools?
The bill was passed unanimously in Senate committee. I'm not positive. I believe if they have an IEP, they're going to have that in their plan.
IEP for early childhood? I didn't know they did that. I thought that was just when you got into...
IEPs are used across the educational spectrum.
So they would, if they have an IEP, they have to do what you just said the bill makes them do?
It's just an addition to the IEP. It doesn't create a brand new IEP. What it says is that part of their IEP has to be a continuity of learning program for the student in the situation. The bill also creates a need for contact. Indeed, in fact, if the students have been out of school and have not had contact with their case managers.
All right. Thank you very much.
Certainly.
Is there any further debate? House Bill 714 is on third reading and final passage. Clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 714, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 940, Gaming, Regulation of Fantasy Gaming, Competitions and Implementation of Sports Wagering, Amendment Number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
All right, sit back. The Senate amendments make technical and clarifying changes, alters the entities who can get the licenses, increases the total number of licenses, alters the application fees. Excuse me. Thank you. It imposes a 15% tax on proceeds, requiring sports wagering licensees to comply with certain data security laws, maintain data securely, prohibits sports wagering licensees from sharing certain personal identifiable information, provides that the sports wagering facility must be subject to local zoning laws, establishes a new special fund that provides grants or loans to small minority and women-owned businesses, prohibits the sale or transfer of ownership of a license except under certain circumstances, requires the State Lottery and Gaming Control Commission to report certain activity to the General Assembly by December 1st, 2025, requires appropriations for establishing centers to study data analytics and sports gaming at certain HBCUs, provides a supplementary appropriation under the bill, and makes the provisions of the bill severable and the bill an emergency measure. Move to concur, Madam Speaker.
Question for the House is to concur in the Senate amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? No. The ayes have it. The gentleman from Calvert.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So I have a question as to the electronic bingo facilities. Has something changed in this bill?
Yes, this bill has named certain places that are definitely getting the B licenses. There's A and B, and the B are of lesser price. And two large bingo halls that have more than 200 bingo machines are named entities. The others are certainly able to apply for the other 30 licenses.
So, so for me to understand, there are these electronic bingo halls that are basically have what look like slots in Anne Arundel and Calvert, and obviously in my district. So, but Anne Arundel has them too, believe it or not. And my question is, who specifically in Calvert is going to get this license?
Rod and reel.
Rod and reel. So we have two other people who have these machines as well. Is this bill giving them the license and providing parity?
In this bill, we are making the policy decision that those larger bingo halls would be named entities, and the others could compete for the B licenses along with others.
And who in Anne Arundel County is the designated winner?
Bingo World.
And that's in Glen Burnie?
I'm not sure. All I know is it's in Anne Arundel. One in
Okay.
Anne Arundel, one in Calvert.
And so I'm just curious, how is it, I mean, I certainly support the bill, so let me just say that first and foremost, but I'm just curious how the decision was made that this one company would get it when there's others that have, also the machines as well. And granted, they're still going to have to pay for the license, but they're guaranteed to get it in the bill, whereas the other ones are not guaranteed to get it.
It's just, we often draw the line, Delegate, and we wanted some certain named entities, but we didn't want to promise all the licenses, so we had to draw the line somewhere.
Got it. Thank you. I was going to talk on the bill just
I'm
briefly.
just waiting for the next guy.
Oh, my bad. Sorry. Thank you.
Okay, he's right behind you.
Gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Happy Sunny Day. When the Senate proposed lifting the cap on licenses, can you tell us where the discussion went and where we landed on the number of licenses?
Certainly, yes. So we originally had like 10 A's and 15 B's, and so now we have 10 named A's and 7 named B licenses, and there are now 30 additional B physical location licenses and 60 mobile.
So in the end, we still decided to have a cap on the amount of licenses, correct?
Yes, we were. It was the trade-off between wanting to ensure that there was real opportunity for the different interests around the state, real opportunities for the MBEs that have shown interest, while at the same time trying to, as a state, ensure the public policy that there wouldn't be this on every street corner.
Okay, thank you so much.
Gentlemen, please put on your jacket.
Yeah, you can take me out of liquor store, you just can't teach me anything.
The gentleman from Calvert.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's just a little warm. I just have one quick question on that. And you may not know, and I may have to do some more research. If the counties have things on the books to where part of the revenue from gambling, say pull tab bingos, that's generated, the county gets a part of it. Will that also include the sports bet, the sports booking, or would that have to be a separate?
That is a separate distribution.
So that'd be something that the county would have to try to advocate to get a piece of that thing. Now, would the money from that also be considered in the amusement tax? When the town, with pull tab bingo machines, the town of Chesapeake Beach gets amusement tax fees off of some of that. Would they get that off of the sports booking?
No.
Okay. Okay, that's what I want to know. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Minority Whip.
Thanks, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Floor Leader. I had a couple more questions for myself and those people that are watching and listening to us. You said there are 10 A's, and they're named?
Yes, it would be our 3 large casinos with more than 1,000 VLTs. It would be our 3 professional sports stadium, major league sports. It would be, I'm trying to, and those are the A1s, so that's 6 of them. And then the A2s would be, I'm missing it in my notes here. The A2s would be, thank you, the 3 small casinos. Plus one more.
Okay, so that's 9.
Yes, I am missing one. I'll get that back to you in a second.
Okay, and if somebody here on the floor remembers.
I'm sorry, to the Jockey Club that allows it to both Laurel and Pimlico. That would be the other A2.
Okay. And then you said 7 Bs that are named?
Yes.
And they would be?
Timonium, the 4 OTBs that we currently have in the state, and then, as I already mentioned, the 2 large bingo halls.
Okay. And then you said 30 Bs, no additional As. That's it for As.
Correct.
Okay, so 30 additional Bs that will go out, the highest bidder wins? Or how are you doing that?
Not exactly highest bidder. We're looking at a few things. There is a mileage restriction from from the named sites, so that will be part of it. And it will also be looking at significant minority participation, also seeing that someone is viable and ready to go, and also some Senate language about giving some preference also to something that may already be in like an opportunity zone or an enterprise zone or something like that.
Okay, and then 60 mobile.
Yes, and that's where there has to be also significant minority partnership, and that's open to all the named A's, the named B's, and everyone else applying for B's, and those who only wish to have a mobile license.
So 47 total licenses outside of the mobiles.
Potentially.
Okay. All right. And when do you think this is all going to go live?
I think the goal is to go live by kickoff of the NFL in first week of September. That's the goal.
Okay. And what's the revenue coming? What cut does the state get of the revenue?
The state will be getting a 15% flat rate from the A's, the B's, and from mobile, as well as license fees from the different categories where A's pay more than B's, and then the mobile license is a little more expensive.
So what's the top A license going to cost?
$2 million.
$2 million per year or one-time fee?
It's an initial fee.
One time $2 million, and then how about the mobiles?
The mobiles, it's $500,000.
Okay, and then I'm assuming an annual renewal fee, or that's it?
Not an annual renewal fee, but I believe it's a 5-year.
A 5-year. This is
Then
a
there's a
5-year. After 5 years, they'll renew it.
Yes.
Well, thank you
And for a lesser amount than that initial fee.
than their initial. Thank you so much for explaining that to those of us that aren't on the committee and for the public that's watching and wondering what A, B, and all those other things mean. Thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Calvert.
Thanks, Madam Speaker. Just the minority whip asked a great question, so I have a follow-up, and that is, you mentioned with the electronic bingo halls, which basically have slot machines. They're de facto slot machines. You said that there is a mileage, a certain amount of miles away from whoever got the A license?
The mileage is the 1.5 miles from other sites. So so someone would have to be 1.5 miles from the named sites, and I believe it's still 15 miles from the 3 rural casinos.
So with respect to the electronic bingo halls in Calvert County, there is one licensee that has already been granted. One license has been granted to one.
Well, not granted. They still have to go through the process and apply if they want it. If
And
they
what
don't,
is
they
what
may
is
not.
what's the distance now between them and the next licensee, mileage-wise?
I don't know. You tell me.
I'm asking you.
I don't know.
No. You said, is it 1.5 miles? They have to be at least 1.5 miles away. Is my question.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Gentleman from Talbot.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just a quick question. And also for anyone who's listening, to understand, to clarify the bill. So for the Eastern Shore, Ocean Downs would be would that be our only A licensed facility?
Yes, it would be an A2, but yes.
And then the B licenses could be within 1.5 miles of that A license, is that correct?
It's 15 miles from the,
It's 15, yeah, so I heard it incorrectly.
okay.
And then are there any other A licensed facilities on that side of the bay?
No, there are not.
Thank you.
Gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just a quick question to the floor leader. And just want to say, representing the Timonium Fairgrounds, so we really appreciate that, and I know they're very happy to be included in the bill. My other question is kind of a follow-up to what the minority whip said, and I'm sorry if you kind of answered it, but how do you go about, I think it's the B license, you talked a little bit about how they are chosen, but is there consideration given if they, I guess, already have, I know the minority part, the minority business part, but the infrastructure in place opposed to somebody, I guess, can you start from scratch or do you have to be a brick and mortar? Like, who can get those licenses in terms of just anybody or?
Just anyone who's willing to pay the initial fee. For the Class B1, it's for larger companies, it's $250,000. For smaller companies with fewer than 25 employees or less than $3 million in gross receipts, they would be paying $50,000 for that on-site license. So yes, in many sense, it's open to a lot of other people. We do not, again, if they're ready to go, that's part of what's being looked at. Do they have the minority participation? Are they in this opportunity or enterprise zone?
Okay, yeah, thanks a lot.
You can start from scratch, yes.
Is there any further debate?
Just one last time, Madam Speaker, and this is important.
This will should be the last
Thank
time.
you. I do
Gentleman from
appreciate it.
Calvert.
I appreciate it, Madam Speaker, because in my county and specifically in my district, I have these three unique businesses that have pull tab bingo machines, which are slot machines. And they're restaurants. And I've never blamed these individuals for having these. I mean, good for them, right? They've got these machines and they do extraordinarily well. And I'm certainly for the idea of sports wagering. It makes sense, but it's really an electronic thing these days. I mean, you really don't necessarily need to have bricks and mortar per se. And certainly makes sense to create licenses that allow everybody to have access. But now, having learned how the bill has been modified so that one business in my district has effectively lobbied to lock out its competitors from having sports wagering because they are both well within the 1.5 mile limit, which is incredibly sketchy, by the way. I simply can't support this bill. It's a shame, right? Because sports wagering is here to stay. It makes perfect sense. But here we have a situation where one company was able to get a license, and good for them, by the way, good for them. But what's not good is they have lobbied to lock out their competitors, both of whom also have electronic bingo machines as well. And that's just wrong, and it sends all the wrong messages about fairness. So for all those reasons, I will be voting no against this bill. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
House Bill 940 is on third reading and final passage. The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 122 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 940, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Messages, Senate Bill 414. The clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 414, Climate Solutions Now Act of 2021.
The clerk will read the message from the Senate.
Ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates, the Senate refuses to concur in the House amendments and respectfully requests the House recede from its position. Should the House prefer a conference committee to confer the disagreeing votes of the two houses, the Senate appoints Senator Pinsky chair, Senator Washington, and Senator Riley. Said bill is returned herewith.
Clerk will read the message to the Senate.
Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, the House of Delegates does not recede in the House amendments to the Senate bill and agrees to a conference committee to confer the disagreeing votes of the two houses. The Senate has appointed Senator Pinsky chair, Senator Washington, and Senator Raleigh. The House appoints Delegate Barvey chair, Delegate Stein, and Delegate Brooks. Said bill is returned herewith.
Report of the Committee on Rules and Executive Nominations, report number 10. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 55, Legislative Department, eligibility to serve as senators and delegates, place of abode. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Senate Bill 55 has two amendments. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 changes the effective date of the act and alters the definition of a person's abode for purpose of candidacy. Move the amendments.
The question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to which I recognize the gentle lady from Baltimore County?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Could the floor leader rise just for a quick question?
Certainly.
Thank you. It says within 6 months you have to be a resident of the district. Is that 6 months before the primary or the general?
The election, that was a question I actually asked in the committee, and I believe it is the election.
So
which is
the main
November
election, not the primary.
The primary is not the
Right.
official.
It's a party election. Okay, I just want to make sure. Thank you very much. Thank you,
Yeah.
Madam Speaker.
Is there any further debate? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Recognizing the majority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move to suspend the rules to have 2 readings in one day on this bill.
Question for the House is to allow the bill to have 2 readings on the same day. Clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 132 votes in the affirmative, the bill is placed on third reading. Is there any
Madam Speaker.
recognizing the minority leader?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. If the floor leader, would you just give the opportunity of the body to understand exactly what this bill does and what problem it solves? Thank you.
Sure. Thank you very much. Several years ago, there was a court case in which 2 members were running for a seat, and the incumbent lived in Baltimore City and Baltimore County. He had properties in both places, and he represented Baltimore City. And there was a dispute as to whether he was met the standards that were required by the law to run for his seat in the legislature. And the Court of Appeals said he did, that his home in Baltimore City qualified because he owned it and he stayed there once in a while, even though he spent most of his time somewhere else. And he had another home in another jurisdiction. And this has been the case ever since that court case for a long time. And the senator looked at this and has been advocating for a while. And this addresses that by saying that not just a legal residence, but you actually have to have a place where it is your primary residence for at least 6 months before you're elected to office.
Is there any further debate? Gentleman from Western Maryland and the Annex.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have a question for the floor leader.
Floor leader.
Yes. Yes.
Could you explain how redistricting would be impacted by this bill?
I think it's a separate issue altogether. I don't see how it affects it at all.
Well, you could potentially have a delegate or a senator who would be redistricted out of their district potentially and may not meet the 6-month requirement.
Well, actually, the amendment does address that issue, and the amendment says that as long as since the redistricting happened, as long as they live in the district when it was created.
So as long as they lived in the district prior to it being changed, they would be okay?
At the time when it was changed or created, or before that, sure.
I think that answers my question.
It also doesn't go into effect until 2024, according to the amendment. So it will be after this current redistricting is done.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Gentleman from Talbot.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I have a question also. I apologize.
Floor leader.
Yes.
So the standard is where you sleep? Is that what this does?
It's where you abide.
It's where you abide.
Yes, it's where your abode is.
Okay.
And that is defined in the bill.
Where your abode is. So what is it? How is it? Just can you explain for me one more time? How does it change the current standard?
That you have to actually be there as your primary residence for 6 months before the election.
Okay. And right now they don't actually have to be there. So I can have a post office box in Calvert County because it's so
No.
popular.
No.
No.
No, you can't abide in a post office box.
Right. But right now that would, okay, I understand now. Thank you.
Thank you. They're kind of small.
Senate Bill 55 is on third reading and final passage. Clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 55, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Report of the Committee on Appropriations, report number 25. The clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 927, Institutions of Higher Education, Prohibition Against Incentive Payments, Foreign Student Exemption, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Report of the Committee on Appropriations, report number 26. The clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 81, Southern Maryland Rapid Transit Project, funding, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
Senate Bill 127, Institutions of Higher Education, Use of Criminal History in Admission, modifications, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Report of the Committee on Health and Government Operations, report number 36. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 829, State Procurement, Emergency and Expedited Procurements, Revisions and Reporting, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Report of the Committee on Ways and Means, report number 41. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 269, Property Tax Exemption, Disabled Active Duty Service Members, Disabled Veterans, and Surviving Spouses, refund, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
Senate Bill 300, Special Education Learning Continuity Plan Requirement, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 578, Income Tax Internal Revenue Code Amendments, decoupling, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 711, Growing Family Child Care Opportunities Pilot Program, established, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 916, Taxes Whistleblower Reward Program and Statute of Limitations for Tax Collections, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Concurrence calendar number 32. The clerk will read the bill and the Senate amendments.
House Bill 240, Criminal Procedure, Forensic, Genetic, Genealogical, DNA Analysis, Searching, Regulation, and Oversight. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Move to concur with the Senate amendments. They align with the Senate bill that we passed earlier yesterday.
Question for the House is to concur in the Senate amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 240 is on third reading and final passage. Clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 240, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 719, Commercial Tenants, Personal Liability Clauses, Enforceability. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Move to concur with the Senate amendments, Madam Speaker.
Question for the House is to concur in the Senate amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Gentlelady from Baltimore County.
Sorry, thank you. Could you just let me know what the Senate amendments were? What did they change?
Committee chair.
If I could ask the gentleman from Montgomery County in the annex. Yes.
I just want to know what changed.
Gentleman from Montgomery County in the annex.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Senate turned the bill into a moratorium on enforcement of personal liability clauses in commercial leases closed under the emergency orders, and that lasts for the duration of the emergency plus 180 days.
Okay, thank you very much.
House Bill 719 is on third reading and final passage. Clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 107 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 719, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Messages, Senate Bill number 525. The clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 525, Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services and State Board of Elections, Centralized Booking Facility, Ballot Drop Box.
The clerk will read the message from the Senate.
Ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates, the Senate refuses to concur in the House amendments and respectfully requests the House recede from its position. Should the House prefer a conference committee to confer on the disagreeing votes of the two houses, the Senate appoints Senator Pinsky chair, Senator Washington, and Senator Lamb. Said bill is returned to your with.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Madam Speaker, we move to recede to the Senate amendments, recede from the House amendments.
The motion before the House is to recede in the House amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The House has receded. The clerk will call the roll for the third reading and final passage.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the minority whip.
Thank you. Can you tell us now what this does? Who receded and what does this bill do now,
It
please?
reverts the bill back to a Baltimore City bill so that it only addresses the Baltimore City Detention Center, and it allows for a ballot drop box to be left in Baltimore City, in the Baltimore City Detention Center, for people who are eligible to vote in elections.
Does this conflict with the other bill that I spoke with my friend behind me on?
It shouldn't conflict with it. It does allow for the drop box at the Baltimore City Detention Center alone.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Speaker,
Gentleman from Anne Arundel.
just a quick question, just out of curiosity. How many eligible voters do we typically have in the Baltimore City Detention Center?
In order to be able to vote, and in this kind of context, you have to have not committed a felony and been incarcerated, or been or be in the period of probation after your incarceration. So, generally speaking, at local detention centers, they're mostly people who were not convicted of a felony. They were mostly people who were convicted of misdemeanors. So it applies more, they are more essential at those facilities than they are at some of the Department of Corrections facilities.
And I appreciate that, but do we have any idea of the numbers? I mean, are we talking 10s, 15, 25? Are we talking hundreds? Are we talking thousands?
I think the number of people at the Baltimore City Detention Center right now would be, I think the last number I saw was about 2,000. How many of those are being held on misdemeanors as opposed to felonies, I could not tell you that.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Madam Speaker.
Gentlelady from Baltimore County.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, could you just let me know who collects them from the box? Is that going to be the Board of Elections or?
Board of Elections working with the, in this case, the Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services.
So there'll be somebody from the Corrections Department that's collecting them, not actually a member of the board?
Would be someone from the Board of Elections who would collect them, not somebody from DPSCS.
Okay,
but
wonderful.
they would coordinate with DPSCS to go in, collect
be
the
able to get in
ballots,
there.
and leave. Yes.
I understand. Thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Anne Arundel.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, just a quick question. So I'm just trying to understand this bill. Does that mean like some people that live in Calvert County or Anne Arundel County have different rules than people that live in Baltimore City or Baltimore County, or is this throughout the state?
It means that the Baltimore City delegation felt that it was important, and the delegation believed that it would be okay to have a drop box at that facility, and that's what the Baltimore City delegation decided. They would be able to drop their ballot there. Other ballots would be returned to the Board of Elections through the way that other people return the ballots to the Board of Elections through the mail.
So what about people that live in different counties? Do they have the same privilege of voting? Or this is just for Baltimore City?
You're saying other people who vote in other counties?
Yes.
And are held at the Baltimore City Detention Center?
Just held in their own different jurisdictions.
Then they would abide by the rules with the legislation that we passed earlier.
So is that picking winners or loser, or picking certain incarcerated people over other people that they have the constitutional right and some don't?
No.
Doesn't?
No.
Do we have an Attorney General opinion on that?
Whether there are winners or losers?
No, whether there are people that
there are
live in
always
certain
winners and losers. I mean, I don't think you need an Attorney General's opinion necessarily here, but I don't believe that that distinction.
Well, I mean, just
Big
picking
deal.
people in some jurisdiction that they have the right to exercise the right versus other people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gentleman from Garrett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Floor Leader, take a question.
Sure.
All right, thank you.
I'm here.
So, say I'm one of the prisoners in the jail, local jail or the
I'm sorry to hear
Baltimore
that.
City jail. How do I get my ballot?
I'm
How
sorry?
do I get a ballot? I'm in the jail. How do the people that are locked up in the jail?
Under both pieces of legislation that we've talked about, they would be able to receive applications for absentee ballots, and you'd be able to submit the absentee ballot application, get the ballot, and then return it.
So they can, from the jail, can send a request to get a ballot?
Yes.
And the jails will have to provide them with information in order to how to make that request?
The Board of Elections would be providing information through to the local detention centers to determine. I feel like I'm arguing two bills here, but having said that,
Yeah,
the Board of
understand,
Elections
yeah.
would provide information as to how people would be able to request the absentee ballot. Again, in this case, only in Baltimore City.
So say someone from out of the county comes to Deep Creek Lake and gets in trouble on a Saturday night at one of the local bars and they get locked up. And they're in for, say, a couple of weeks or a month or so for whatever. And how do they?
Fair amount of trouble. But
How
okay.
do they get? How do they get? Do they vote? Does the Garrett County get that vote, or do they? How do they? I don't know whether this is explained in the other
Their
bill.
vote would count wherever the ballot was registered, or whether the voter was registered. So the situation that I thought for a moment that the delegate from Anne Arundel County was referring to is what if there was, for example, an Anne Arundel County resident who is at the Baltimore City Detention Center being held on a matter. They actually would be able to leave their ballot in the box.
So once
and
they
it would
dropped
be-
in the drop box, the local
Go to the
authorities would
county
pick
where
that
they
up
are.
and they'd have to get it to the county wherever that person is from.
Because that happens actually right now. It goes wherever the ballot goes to whatever jurisdiction the ballot came from.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from St. Mary's.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Florida, there just a couple questions. When did we start using ballot drop boxes outside of the Board of Elections?
I defer to one of my colleagues from Ways and Means for that, but I believe that we started to see ballot drop boxes maybe in the last 4 years. We did it this last year. Okay.
I'm having trouble hearing you.
I think I'm sorry, it was just in this last election.
Just last election,
Believe
just
so.
last November?
Yes.
So how many ballot boxes do we have across the state? Do you know?
I don't. A little less than 300, my friend from Ways and Means tells
So
me.
we've gone from like 0 to 300, and now we're putting in correction facilities, central booking in one location.
Correct.
Do we put them in any other facilities that have a lot of people that might be like long-term care facilities, nursing homes, hospitals, any place like that?
I'm not familiar with the location for every single box that's all the way across the state. I believe that there are some that are at facilities that are perhaps senior centers and long-term care facilities. They're also at libraries and a wide range of other places.
Okay. But we don't know for sure. Who's in charge of where the locations for ballot boxes are supposed to be assigned?
The local Board of Elections.
The local Board of Elections? Okay, so why do we need a bill to put one at if the local Board of Elections is in charge of where to put the drop boxes, why do we need a bill to put it in a correction facility?
The idea here is that the Baltimore City delegation wanted to enable that to happen and wanted effectively to enable the Baltimore City Board of Elections to be able to set up that location. So that was a choice that was made by the local delegation.
Okay, so the local delegation didn't want to leave it up to the local board, this is the bill to assign and enforce it there. Okay.
And I'm sorry? Defer to the gentleman from Ways and Means so that I'm not.
Thank you, Mr. Floor Leader.
Mr. Chairman, I was just going to add, because this facility is run by DPSCS, the other ballot drop box locations are generally at locations that are controlled by the local government. So this requires a level of intergovernmental interaction that the legislation clarifies.
So we can put them there, so a local government doesn't have control over like a nursing home, per se. So we'd have a bill to put it in
There's nothing in state law that would prevent a local government from putting a ballot drop box at, for example, Leisure World or another major senior facility.
Okay. I appreciate you answering these questions. Thank you.
Any further debate? Clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call.
Madam Speaker.
Let me do the call.
I'm sorry.
There will be 95 votes in the affirmative. Senate Bill 525, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Bill's gone. Clerk will read the message to the Senate.
Read the bill. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, the House of Delegates recedes from its position on Senate Bill 525. Said bill is returned herewith.
Conference Committee report, Senate Bill 202. The clerk will read the bill and the Conference Committee report.
Senate Bill 202, Correctional Services, Parole, Life Imprisonment. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the chair of the Conference
Thank you
Committee.
very much, Madam Speaker. Move so much be the reading of the Conference Committee report.
So ordered.
The House position was maintained in the committee report, saying that the person may be considered for parole if they were sentenced to a sentence of life with the possibility of parole. They would have the opportunity to be considered for parole at 20 years minus deductions for diminution credits. The Senate position was taken in the form of a clarification that 6 members of the Parole Commission, of the 10 members of the Parole Commission, must affirmatively vote in favor of parole for a person who was sentenced to life with the possibility of parole. Move the amendments, move the Conference Committee report, I should say.
Motion for the House is the adopt the Conference Committee report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Conference Committee report is adopted. Senate Bill,
Madam Speaker.
recognizing the minority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We've had a lot of conversation about this bill, but I just want to have one point of clarity from the floor leader. If you would, Mr. Chairman, could you let the body know what the earliest someone would be eligible for parole under the provisions of this bill?
Again, it would be 20 years with allowances for diminution credits. That would approximately be, depending on whether they took advantage of the dim credits that were offered to them, at the soonest would be somewhere around probably 15 and a half to 16 years. Currently, it's 15 years with the application of dim credits. That's closer to 12 years that a person who is sentenced to life with the possibility of parole could be considered for parole.
At 12 years?
At 12 years.
So you, just for clarification, this person could have committed murder. Is that correct?
They could have committed murder as long as they were given a sentence of life with the possibility of parole. And that is under current law, that it would be 12 years. Under this, it would make it 15 and a half, 16 at the very earliest. Okay. And again, still, they would have to go through the parole process.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Is there any further debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 88 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 202, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Concurrence calendar number 35. The clerk will read the bill and the Senate amendments.
House Bill 251, Maryland Funding, Accountability, and Transparency Act, non-budgeted state agencies, amendment number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move to concur with the Senate amendments. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 conforms the bill to Senate Bill 244 by adding a provision that transfers funds to the Real Property Records Improvement Fund. Move to concur.
Question for the House is to concur in the Senate amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 251 is on third reading and final passage. Clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 138 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 251, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 269, Department of Agriculture, Urban Agricultural Grant Program, amendment number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair. Environment and Transportation.
Pardon me, Madam Speaker. Okay, thank you very much. We move to concur in the Senate amendments.
Can you explain what the Senate amendments are?
The Senate amendments are technical corrections to, they make technical corrections to references in the bill.
Recognizing the general lady from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Could you just explain again now what the bill will do with the Senate amendments?
Well, this is, of course, the Urban Agriculture Grant Program.
It sounds good to my ears. Just wondering exactly
Well, you
what
should
it's gonna
probably
do.
just go with that then. You know.
I like urban agriculture. I just want
Yeah.
to make sure that we're not doing anything crazy.
Well, let me see if I can find crazy things in here. Perhaps the
Maybe the sponsor- yeah, exactly.
perhaps
Sponsor of the
could-
bill?
Perhaps I can be bailed out by the
If I
sponsor
may,
of the bill.
Mr. Chair, thank you.
Sponsor of the bill.
Sure, thank you, Madam Speaker. So this bill, what it does is it creates a pilot program. There is no funding that's dedicated. Hopefully, in the future, we will be able to get it added in the governor's budget. But this was done in collaboration with Maryland Department of Agriculture, the Farm Bureau, the Rural Maryland Council as well. And also the program, what it does is it not only helps those farmers grow their enterprise, but it also helps with providing training for up-and-coming farmers. Also works closely with our universities as well.
It sounds like a wonderful bill. Thank you very much.
Gentleman from Caroline.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Rural Maryland Council supported this with amendment. Did we actually take their amendment, and are they on board now?
Yes, they've, like as the chair said, this is a technical amendment. They've been on board with it for several weeks now.
So the Rural Maryland Council is on board?
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Any further debate? House Bill 269 is on third reading and final passage. The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 132 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 269, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 991, Natural Resources, Forest Mitigation Banks, Qualified Conservation, amendment number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We move to concur in the Senate amendments. Move so much be considered those reading of those amendments. The amendments do the following things. Number 1, it creates a 3-year sunset. It limits the qualified conservation to forest banked before 12/31/20 and sunsets the mitigation banking provisions in 3 years and 1 month. The second thing that it does essentially is it adds the forestry and tree planting provisions of the Climate Solutions Bill to this bill by establishing a goal of planting 5 million native trees by 2031 and by establishing a process for funding to meet this goal, including through a newly created Urban Trees Program and a Commission for the Innovation and Advancement of Carbon Markets and Sustainable Tree Plantings. Move to concur in the Senate amendments.
Question for the House is to concur in the Senate amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Gentlelady from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Same question as last time. So I understand what we've added. Does it change the fiscal note?
Yeah, basically the provisions that are currently in the currently being negotiated Climate Solutions Now Act basically provided the House proposal for that law basically said that in the first year, $15 million would come out of the Bay Restoration Fund, but then in successive years, the money would be a mandate from the general fund.
Okay, and so what other things anything else has changed besides what you read off? I mean, what does the real bill really do now?
Well, what the bill does now is as the bill left the House, we basically affirmed the existence of the forest mitigation banking methodology, and we are waiting for a report from the Hughes Center for Agroecology that we believe will come to us in December of this year. And based upon that, we were planning to actually finally decide how we're going to establish this program in the next General Assembly. So really, although we have a 3-year sunset here, we really only need one, and so essentially that's what this all does.
Okay, so we're waiting on the report. We've gotten some kind of preliminary report that says that this works, but we're waiting on a more long-term study. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, we're waiting for a long-term study. We believe it'll be done in December of this year, and we will be back really looking at the entire issue associated with the forest mitigation system.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Talbot.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And so the bill's changed now. Is there is there any funding that comes from the Bay Restoration Fund?
Yes, in the first year.
How much?
$15 million. I'll get a phone call if I'm wrong, but I believe that's correct. Okay. Now, just to give you an idea, I don't see the phone flashing, so I must be right. In the Senate conception of this tree planting enterprise, they originally wanted to take from now until the year 2031, $15 million a year out of the Bay Restoration Fund every year. We were only able to establish we got rid of that part of the bill, and we just established it as being a mandate in the general fund of the state of Maryland.
Yeah, when you say the Senate, who's leading that?
Well, the Senate sponsors the chair of the EHEA committee.
Gotcha. So $15 million this is for the planting of trees, right?
Correct.
So how much money, I know DNR makes trees available right now. Like if you want a tree, DNR will give you a tree for free. So I was wondering, if DNR is giving away free trees, why are we taking money from the Bay Restoration Fund?
Well, first of all, bear in mind that pretty much everybody agrees that to a great extent, especially when they're planted in ecologically sensitive places, tree growth is helpful for the ecology and especially for the Chesapeake Bay. It's not the only thing we're going to be doing, but obviously the purpose of this planting of 5 million trees would be a policy decision of this government to do that to not just help the restoration of the Bay, but also to mitigate the effects of climate change. Trees are a great way to sequester carbon and in urban areas, diminish heat island effects.
Well, I'm happy to hear that it's not $15 million for multiple years. And my question is how is it being funded and how much? And it's $15 million from the Bay Restoration Fund. And that point I just wanted to make for the body to consider is that while we're taking money from the Bay Restoration Fund and we're trying to achieve these goals, that DNR is making these trees available to anyone for free, just by request.
Probably not in the volume of this bill, though.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Caroline.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So we're talking about $15 million out of the Bay Restoration Fund, and we know that ENR plant upgrades, ENR plant upgrades and also failing septic systems are also funded out of the Bay Restoration Fund. Will any of those projects be impacted by this one-time funding?
Yeah, I mean, it's impossible. Hold on. I think it's impossible to say that something wouldn't be impacted. Right. I was reminded that the priority still remains with the DNR upgrade, with the upgrade of plants. So, look, I'm not going to stand here and say that absolutely nothing is going to be put off by 3 months or 4 months. I'm not going to say that. But, I personally consider it to be a good thing for the Chesapeake Bay for us to be planting trees. And I think it's especially a good thing that we're only going to be taking money out of the BRF 1 year.
So it sounds like current projects will probably be funded, but any projects that are in the pipe in the out years may be delayed possibly, because $15 million is still a lot of money.
Yeah, it is, but I mean, it is a lot of money, but it's a one-time deal.
Okay. All right. So, Madam Speaker, obviously a priority of this body, and I believe the committee and DNR, MDE has been to fund upgrades to our ENR plants, and also we have failing septic systems basically all over the state. I know there are a lot on the Eastern Shore that we're very concerned about, and we have used Bay Restoration money very extensively to repair and replace a lot of those septic systems. So that is a bit concerning to take this much money out of that fund. Thank you.
By the way, Madam Speaker, I neglected to mention that basically as a result of this compromise, pretty much everybody is on board with it. It's something, it's seen as a compromise. It's very useful for the business community and the development community, and also for the environmental community. And so I think we've hit the balance point just about right.
Okay. The gentleman from Queen Anne's and the Annex.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Floor Leader, just a couple quick questions, please.
Committee Chair.
I'm here. Yes, go ahead.
As I read through some of the testimony, Blue Water, Baltimore, kind of had some questions in there about, and this kind of confused me, when we're talking about how we're going to plant all these trees. I think it was the Clean Air bill we had, HB 583. They kind of felt that this bill was contradicting some of what we're trying to do in Baltimore with tree covering, that our forest mitigation was an issue. Did you address those?
Well, wait a minute. What bill's testimony are you looking at? Because this wasn't in the original bill, so it wouldn't be the testimony.
I was looking at the testimony on the computer. That and the Maryland Forestry Foundation.
Let me just. Could you please repeat your question, because I clearly don't understand what
when I looked
what
through
you're
the
asking.
testimony. Okay, when I looked through the testimony on it, there were two unfavorables in the testimony on the bill.
Mm-hmm.
One was from Blue Water, Baltimore, and the other was from the Maryland Forestry Foundation.
And what were they? Remind me, because of course,
the Forestry Foundation referred to an AG's opinion about how we're now doing our forest mitigation, and their comment was that it felt it was contradictory to what we're supposed to be doing. That this bill goes against that. Did you address those needs?
Well, I mean, there's obviously the entire purpose of House Bill 991 was originally necessitated by the Attorney General opinion, and the necessity for us as a state to relook at our forest mitigation strategies into the future. And so I think there were a lot of people who testified that they disagreed fundamentally with what the Attorney General said, and then there were other groups that testified that they fully agreed with what the Attorney General said. My view with respect to this bill right now, at least with respect to the forest mitigation aspect of this bill right now, is that we need to get the study properly completed by December, so that our committee in this chamber can make a final decision with respect to how we're going to do all this. And look, it's a tough balancing act in terms of the policy.
Okay, I guess it just comes off a little bit different when you're looking at, we're trying to put more trees out there, and Baltimore, Blue Water Baltimore is saying we're taking trees away. When I go back to my district and I start talking about, well, we're going to spend all this money on trees while we're mitigating trees, it becomes a little contradictory as we're trying
No,
to.
I don't think so. I mean, I don't know how anyone in the Baltimore region could come to the conclusion that we're, underserving the people of Baltimore with respect to tree planting. And certainly the end goal of this entire policy is to plant 5 million new trees. And I think at the end of the day, everybody should be relatively comfortable with that.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the answers. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm curious about, we're going to plant 5 million trees. Are we talking about just putting seeds in the ground? Are we actually buying baby trees? And I ask because I do know.
They usually use saplings. I mean,
And what's the average cost of a sapling?
What's the what?
The average cost of a sapling. So,
well, I mean, whatever it is, it can't exceed it can't exceed the amount of money being dedicated to the fund. I mean,
so
I mean, look, we're going to the goal is to plant 5 million trees, but we're very specifically saying how much money is going to be spent over that period of time. So, if that gets us to 4.9 or 5.1, I mean, that's what the money is going to pay for.
So the bill just says 15 million. This is all we can spend, and whatever
in 1 year.
In 1 year, as many trees as we can get for $15 million. That's what we're gonna.
Yeah, basically, I think that's a fair way to assess it.
And the impetus of the bill is to start to put them in urban areas, Baltimore City.
Some of them. I mean, obviously, the majority of them would not be in one jurisdiction.
Because I can tell you, the tough part is, oftentimes when you're putting, and I've been in Baltimore City, in urban areas, it's tough to find areas to plant these trees because then the roots will start to push up the sidewalks, which causes another problem. Is that all part of the study? And I'm honestly curious about
I mean, I would presume so. I mean, I live in Rockville, and we have trees all throughout downtown Rockville, and that is a problem in some places, and in other places it's not.
Okay.
And you could see it here in Annapolis. I mean, sometimes, well, you've walked the streets of Annapolis.
Yeah, trees are beautiful, but they can also cause some problems. I'm just curious on how we plan to implement them.
Well, on balance, we think they're really great.
Yeah, well, I like them too. Just not
to this extent.
Not to the point where it's destroying the streets or whatever. I'm just curious on how we implement it.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Talbot in the Annex.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Floor leader, rise for a second.
I'm here.
Okay.
Oh, I guess you can't see me. That's why you say that. All right.
No, I'll see you here in a second. So I'm going to be up on the next bill, so I was paying attention to that. My co-delegate from Talbot told me to pay attention to this bill, and so he and I were texting back and forth. But the question that I have, and I think he has as well, is when I look at the purpose paragraph requiring the Department of the Environment to make certain transfers from the Bay Restoration Fund for certain purposes in a certain fiscal year. So the question is, what is the total of all the money being taken from the Bay Restoration Fund? Do we have a fiscal
$15 million.
All right, so $15 million now.
For 1 year.
For 1 year?
Just 1 year.
Okay, and what about the year following?
The following years would be a mandate on the general fund of the state of Maryland.
I mean, as Eastern Shore representative, I think you can sense where I would be really concerned. We just had a wonderful improvement of the wastewater treatment plant in the town of Preston. Went all the way from BNR to ENR. They just had a ceremony on this. Very excited about that, understanding that the Bay Restoration Fund was a big part of the funding. Every rural municipality that needs these upgrades were under consent order. And so the citizens that live in some of these municipalities simply can't afford the wastewater treatment upgrade. So I'm curious, and pardon me because I was paying attention on the next bill, you may have already answered this, but what policy decision are we making where I know that we have many throughout the state wastewater treatment plants that need upgrades, but yet we're taking money out of that for, maybe you tell me why the policy.
I mean, and I think I think we discussed this briefly during the Clean Water Commerce Act. Obviously, the major plants have been addressed, and there are smaller plants throughout the state of Maryland that still have to be addressed as well. There's still more work to be undertaken, but I think what I'd like for you to consider, and I think this is the way the scientists at the Department of at the Maryland Department of Energy and in DNR and other places look at this, is that cleaning up the bay is a big task that we don't have a silver bullet for. We can't just do one thing. Cleaning up sewage treatment facilities over the schedule that's already been established is a big, important strategy. But there were other strategies in the Clean Water Commerce Act, and this using one tranche of money in 1 year for tree planting is another part of a strategy. It's, as I have said, the Chesapeake Bay is the biggest chemistry experiment on Earth, if you don't count the atmosphere. It's the biggest wet chemistry experiment on Earth, and we have always felt that we have to use lots of different strategies to clean up the bay, and this is one of them.
Mr. Chairman, let me just say that the town of Preston was beyond thrilled because they were under consent order to see a piece of legislation pass a few years back where Senator from 37 and myself put a bill in to take money that was from Bay Restoration Fund to help advance not only BNR upgrades but go right to ENR. Those are
well, that's good for everybody, isn't it?
Well, but the point that I would make to you is if you asked a citizen in Preston what's more important to them, is it to get this wastewater treatment upgrade, get the consent order out of the way, keep the taxes low, which all these things did, or should we plant trees? I promise you that a walk and a door knocking trip through that municipality would yield a 100% nod toward what the state did, what your committee did in passing that legislation, had a dramatic impact on the quality of life for our citizens. We can all plant trees. I don't know that we need $15 million to plant trees, but let me tell you what $15 million would do on the Eastern Shore. It would knock out a handful of projects where I think they need to be done. What I think you're saying to me is that, delegate from 37, consider all options, consider all opportunities to improve the Chesapeake Bay. And my only feedback, and it's respectful to the committee because I know that you understand this, but we've got some wastewater treatment plants that if you and I took a tour and looked, and it's not just the Eastern Shore, but I think you would say, hey, let's get this done. And that would be my only comment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Gentlelady from Baltimore City.
I move the previous question, Madam Speaker.
The question for the House is to move the previous question. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 991 is on third reading and final passage. Clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 98 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 991, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1069, Water Supply Private Well Safety Program, Amendment Number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We move to concur in the Senate amendments, and they are the following. The first is technical. The second clarifies that the corrective action required under the bill may include providing an alternative source of potable water, remediating the contamination, or providing the tenant with the option to terminate the lease. The amendment also establishes a civil penalty for violations of the bill's requirements, provides local health departments with enforcement authority, and requires MDE to adopt specific regulations. And the third amendment requires MDE to report to specified committees by December 31, 2022 on reports of well water contamination received under the bill. Move to concur.
The question for the House is concur in the Senate amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Gentlelady from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Okay, so on the reporting piece that you said, can you just tell me the changes one more time?
Yeah, I mean, on the reporting piece.
The reporting piece, that was confusing. Last time we had to self-report to our health department. Is that still in there?
Well, yeah, those provisions wouldn't be changed. We're just requiring that MD report to the committees of the legislature by the end of next year on of a report of well water contamination, statistics accumulated under the bill.
I understand. So it's that kind of reporting. I wasn't our reporting. Okay.
Yeah.
And remind me again, does this apply to short-term rentals, like sort of boutique hotel type stuff?
Yeah, let me just double check.
Okay.
Yeah, we believe it does.
Okay, I'm just going to check with my... One moment. Okay, all right. So thank you very much. We don't have any further questions.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Talbot.
Thank you, Speaker. I just want to say a couple words on the bill. I mean, I don't know who all in this chamber is on a well system. I don't know who all in this chamber has had their water tested. And we debated this bill and offered amendments, but I just can't tell you how bad of a bill this is and how much it's going to affect so many people who are unknowing right now. And it's hugely problematic. It's hugely cumbersome, and it is not inexpensive. This is not a small requirement. And I don't know. I mean, a lot of people are on public water. Most of my district is on well water. I know some people have gotten their water tested, no big deal. I know a lot of people that have a heck of a lot of problems getting their water tested and getting it approved. And it has not been easy. It's unnecessary to do this every year. Our land is not the same. I discussed this when we did amendments, and here's the bill. None of this was addressed in the conference. And you all heard this. There's chemicals coming out of your public water which aren't being tested every year. So I've got some real problems with this bill. I understand there are proponents supporting it. I don't want to labor on, but it's a bad bill for my district. It's not helpful. It's cumbersome. It's an overreach by government. It isn't uniform. Every county has its own health department. Who knows who to call right now? And who knows when those offices are going to be open? It's the wrong time for this. It hasn't been studied properly. The right people haven't been involved. This is bad policy. It should not go into law. And I want to make sure that my words are on the record and that everybody has heard them, because this is an overreach.
I just want to correct the
Committee
record.
Chair.
The testing would be every 3 years.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Talbot in the annex.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I also have questions on the bill. Mr. Floor Leader.
Yes.
All right. So, I was going to ask if we could special order this to the end of this calendar or soon. The sponsor's over here, and he and I talked the last time I had questions, but provided that's not going to be a possibility. So the Senate actually says
The gentleman, you didn't ask. You have to ask.
Well, I would like to actually talk to the sponsor. He and I had a good conversation a week or so
I'd be
ago.
happy to accept a special order
Thank
until
you.
the end of the calendar at this session.
Thank you.
Question for the House of Special Order HB 1069 to the appropriate time at some point today, this evening.
Madam Speaker.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill has been special ordered. The Minority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just as a point of clarification, I just want to verify the bill that's before us, is it the reprint on our floor system? So on our floor system, it looks like it is, but I just want to verify. Maybe the committee chair could have the staff take a look. It might answer a lot of questions that are going around. Thank you.
Thank you. Yea and nay, consent calendar number 16. The House bills passed in the Senate. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 288.
Recognizing Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the reading of House Bill 288 be considered the reading of all the bills on the calendar.
So ordered. Consent calendar, yeas and nays, number 16. Clerk, read first bill. Oh, no, we did that. We did that. Never mind. Committee chairs, can you please come forward? Report of the Committee on Environment and Transportation. Report number 49. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 592, State Vehicle Fleet, Conversion to Zero-Emission Electric Vehicles. Favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader in the annex. Yes. You may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Thank you. As amended, HB 592 establishes the intent of the General Assembly that 100% of its passenger cars in the state fleet by 2030 and other light-duty vehicles in the state fleet by 2035 be zero emission or ZEVs. The bill phases in the requirement for purchases of EVs for passenger cars starting in 2021 and for light-duty vehicles starting in 2026. Move the amendments, Madam Speaker.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. The question now is the adoption of the Fable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Fable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Recognizing the gentleman in Western Maryland.
Thank you. I wanted to ask my friend in the annex, the offer of the amendments, and I believe the sponsor of the bill. What is the fiscal impact of adopting this policy? I thought at one point in time I saw something that said the estimate was it would cost the state about $25 million a year, and then that would be spread out over a period of years as we sort of cycled through the fleet. What's your best estimate of the fiscal impact of this policy today?
That's a great question. What I would say to you, Delegate, is there is no mechanism in this bill that requires the funding. So if we acquire some federal funding, then this will be funded. Otherwise, it won't come straight out of the budget.
Okay, so there's no mandate, but does the best estimate of, in order to get this done in a timely fashion, pursuant to the objectives of the bill and of your interest in the fact, would it still cost about that amount of money, or we just don't know? We're not saying how much the state's going to spend every year.
We don't know because the state isn't isn't going to spend the money. We're going to we're going to work on federal funding for it. So there is no dollar amount from the state. If it were a dollar amount from the state, it would probably be somewhere between $4 and $5 million. But again, it's not coming from the state, so it doesn't.
Okay, so if we don't get the federal funding in future years, maybe we get it right now, maybe a few years down the road we don't, then this bill wouldn't require any additional funding beyond the federal transferred funds. Is that fair?
That is correct, Delegate.
Great. Thank you very much, my friend.
Thank you.
Minority Whip.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My good friend in the annex, did you say 100% of the fleet? Can you tell me what you said again? And hold the microphone close because it's hard to hear you over here, please.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it phases it in. It phases it in, Delegate. So it phases it in by 100%, but that doesn't take effect until we get toward 2035. So 2030, other light-duty vehicles in the state. By 2035, be zero-emission vehicles. The bill phases in the requirement to purchase ZEVs for passenger vehicles starting in 2021 and light-duty vehicles starting in 2026. So we're talking quite a number of years out.
But you're still saying 100% of the vehicles.
I am saying 100% of the vehicles that can fulfill the needs of the state. So there is a carve out in the bill if there's a particular situation where there is not a vehicle available to do or what is required, then there would not be the need to purchase said vehicle. Does that answer your question?
No, make that a little more clear, please. So,
okay, let's say that there's a particular vehicle that the state uses. Let's say it's a big, massive dump truck. And there's not an electric dump truck option at the time that the state needs to purchase a dump truck. Then the state can go ahead and purchase a diesel or internal combustion engine dump truck if they needed to do that. So it's not going to force the state to purchase something that is not available or doesn't do the job that the state actually requires.
okay, thank you for that explanation. One more quick question. So you said
Yes, ma'am.
federal funds,
Yes, ma'am.
but those are still tax dollars, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank
they're
you.
still tax dollars.
Is there any further debate? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading.
Thank you.
Report of the Committee on Appropriations, report number 27. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 563, Local Health Departments Funding. Favor of the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Oh. Who's in? Oh. The gentleman from Montgomery and the Annex.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
The amendment delays the implementation of the changes to funding by 2 years respectively throughout the bill. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Amendments have been adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Special order calendar number 93. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 680, State Retirement and Pension System Administration of Benefit Clarification.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to yield the floor to my friend from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Minority Whip.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Chair, I will withdraw my amendment so that my senator's bill may move forward. So he talks to me tomorrow.
Any additional debate or amendments? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third. Oh, it's on third reading? Oh, it is on third reading. Senate Bill 680 is on third reading. It is on third reading for final passage. Clerk will take the call.
Madam Speaker.
everyone recorded the vote? Does anyone care to change your vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 139 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 680, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Report of the Committee on Environment and Transportation. Clerk, read the bill.
Senate Bill 859, Department of Housing and Community Development, appraisal gap from historic redlining financial assistance program establishment, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. We're going to take a break. We're going to adjourn to 8:50. Quorum call before adjournment.
Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
Oh, right away.
Madam
Oh, yeah,
Speaker,
yeah, hold on.
the House Judiciary Committee will have a voting session starting at 8:20. 8:20.
Madam
Environment
Speaker.
and Transportation.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Environment and Transportation Committee will vote on a concurrence at 8:25.
Ways and Means.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Ways and Means will vote on concurrences at 8:25.
Economic Matters.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The House Economic Matters Committee will have its final voting session immediately following session.
Nothing appropriation, nothing to HGO. Clerk will take the call. There being 139 members present, the House is still in session, recognizing the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the House stand adjourned until Monday, April 12th at 8:50 p.m. Legislative Day, March 29th. It's almost April, everyone.